Rangers Once and Always is finally here, kicking off the 30th anniversary of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and seeing the return of a number of characters and actors to the franchise. Now, it should go without saying that a project with this much fan service and this much hype is going to have a lot of expectations surrounding it. So with all the returning legacy characters and a Netflix budget, does Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always actually live up to the hype? Well, let's find out. Now, we're going to start off with the recap of the episode, and then we're going to go to my feelings about it in the review section of this video. And in case it wasn't incredibly obvious by now, there are massive spoilers coming up, so consider yourself warned. With that being said, let's jump into the recap. It's Morphin time. We open up with Billy, the original Blue Ranger, fighting a squad of putties and a new robotic version of Rita Repulsa. Billy seems to be having a bit of nostalgia for the old days too, because just like when he was a brand new Ranger, he is getting his ass kicked. But fortunately, the other 5 Mighty Morphin Rangers show up to help. They start taking out all the putties while Billy fights Rita. Now this Rita is a lot more practical than the Rita of the past, since she uses her magic to actually create a lethal Avada Kedavra type blast of energy and fires it directly at Billy. Trini jumps in front of him, getting vaporized in the process. Rita basks in her win and teleports away, leaving the rest of the team to deal with the loss of a Ranger. After all, as we all know, there's no better way to celebrate a win over an arch nemesis than packing up and going home for the day. Alright, we're getting back to being serious, because Zach and Billy go to meet with Trini's daughter to tell her the news. And as they're arguing over what exactly to tell her, she ends up hearing that her mom was killed by Rita Repulsa and that her mom and friends are all Power Rangers. The story jumps ahead 1 year and we get some nice exposition explaining what the Ranger world looks like now. Billy is the head of a major tech company that exists in the old Ranger Command Center, with all the Ranger stuff going on in the basement levels, and day-to-day business taking place in the normal offices above. We find out that before the initial battle we just saw, Billy found a way to resurrect Zordon by gathering up energy left over after he exploded, all the way back in Power Rangers in Space. But unfortunately, the project goes awry when it captures the leftover evil energy of Rita instead. Now this is actually a nice nod to continuity. As I mentioned, in Power Rangers in Space, Andros, the Red Ranger there, shatters Zordon's tube to allow a wave of good energy to overtake all the evil forces that are attacking the world at that time. All the evil characters turn good with all their evil energy just sort of disappearing. We see that Rita actually does become a good character, and she remains that way all the way through Power Rangers Mystic Force. So giving her a new robot body is kind of an interesting way to actually bring her back into the series, and does actually line up with the established continuity. So good job, writers. But let's not give them too much praise. The energy he captured goes into Alpha instead and creates the Robo Rita. Like literally, the Alpha robot just transforms into Rita once the energy's in there. Now does this make any sense? No, none at all. And it's frustrating that we literally had an entire evil empire of living machines that these Rangers faced, and the writer still had to come up with some weird convoluted way to get Rita into a robo body. At least it does make for some very good story with the guilt Billy is feeling, as he blames himself for creating this new threat, and for the death of Trini at the hands of it. Also, I guess Billy can just whip up new alphas whenever he needs to now, since the alpha that became Rita was Alpha 8, and in the present day now, we have Alpha 9. Speaking of the present day, we also learned that Zach was a US Senator when Trini was killed. No doubt using his experience from the peace conference that ended his first run as a Ranger, but he gave all that up to become guardian to Min, Trini's daughter. At the 1-year anniversary of Trini's death, the team meets up at her grave but is ambushed by Rita, putties, and 2 new monsters. The fight really doesn't go well as Jason, Tommy, and Kimberly, and yeah, we get confirmation that this is supposed to be Jason, Tommy, and Kimberly, but more on that in a minute, are captured and shrunken down to little toy size to be used as batteries for a machine Rita made. Now obviously, this is the story's way of getting these characters out of the story due to the passing of Jason David Frank last year, the legal troubles Austin St. John has been facing, and Amy Jo Johnson opting not to return for the episode. Billy and Zach grab Min and hop into the new version of the Red Bug and fly to the command center, where they learn that Rita has launched a worldwide invasion. Now admittedly, this is pretty epic, but she only is really sending a bunch of putties to different locations. I would think that she'd want to send something a little more fierce because the team was able to actually beat all those putties doing crazy moves like this. But hey, what do I know? I'm not an evil robot. Anyway, the team in Alpha activate the Bandora Protocol, which alerts all existing Ranger teams to make sure they take out the putties in their area, and calls in Rocky and Kat to fill in as Rangers. We learn that Rocky is now a firefighter, and Kat is a full-time mom to JJ, her and Tommy's son. They're given temporary power coins because, as we all know,
too much pink energy is dangerous.
And the 4 Morph Rangers head off to protect the city. After some beatings are generously applied, the Rangers figure out that the monsters can track them whenever they're morphed. So they all retreat to the command center, demorph, and call Adam and Aisha for help. They're now part of Space Patrol Alpha, a space police force last seen in Power Rangers SPD. They offer to come and help, but they're still 6 hours away by spaceship. Fortunately, though, they do remind Billy that he helped them with some cloaking technology in the past that could be used to help them remain undetected now. The Rangers decide to use it to infiltrate Rita's moon base, but first they have to go and spring a trap for the 2 monsters. They realize that the 2 monsters are made out of metals, so they go to a construction site and morph, luring out the 2 monsters and trapping them with a giant electromagnet.
Yeah, bitch! Magnets! Oh!
Unfortunately, though, at the same time, Min grabs her mom's morpher to try and join the fight, and it doesn't work. The other Rangers save her from a bunch of putties at the juice bar before they go to Rita's moon palace. Now Min, again trying to be a hero, sneaks out of the command center and goes over to the construction site where the trapped monsters are with the intention of morphing to kill them. But again, she can't, and this time she's captured by Rita. The Rangers get into the moon base no problem. We see that a lot more Rangers have been caught and connected to the machine, including the Galaxy, Dino Thunder, and Beast Morpher teams, in addition to the Black and Yellow Space Rangers, the Lunar Wolf Ranger, and the Yellow Zeo Ranger, and the Phantom Ranger. Now yeah, I get it. These inclusions don't really make a whole lot of sense lore-wise, but look, is this really where you're going to start having your disbelief flare up? It turns out Rita is making a time machine to go tell her younger self everything she needs to know to kill the Rangers when they're still rookies, and the captured Rangers are the power source. Rita shows up with Min as her prisoner, and a more fight ensues. Rita again goes for a killing curse on Billy, but this time Min jumps in the way. Geez, I'm starting to think that the Quan family are all Secret Service agents, but honestly, it's actually a very touching moment. Earlier in the episode, Min had expressed some frustration over her mom making the decision she did. So when Min makes this decision as well, it really shows that she understands more about being a Ranger, and occasionally the need to sacrifice herself for the greater good. But as it turns out, her mom's morpher protects her and resuscitates her before giving her access to the saber-toothed tiger powers. And yeah, I know, this is really cool, and now we have a Yellow Ranger, but it is a bit of a plot hole that it couldn't do the same thing for Trini. And yes, before you let me know, I do know that Thuy Trang, the original Yellow Power Ranger, did pass away very tragically back in 2001. That's why she wasn't able to be in this reunion episode, and why so much of the story is dedicated to her. It is also worth noting that the entire special was recorded before Jason David Frank did pass away last year, which is why they don't really have any more tribute elements prepared for him. Still, it's a lovely inclusion that they dedicated so much of this episode to her. It's just kind of a weird way to go about it with that morpher being kind of like a magical shield. And by the way, speaking of a magical shield, we saw that Trini was pretty much vaporized, right? How did the morpher and power coin survive? Were they rebuilt or something? Or were they temporary ones like the ones Kat and Rocky have? Who knows? Power Rangers, right? Anyway, we now have 5 active Rangers. Rita makes one of her monsters, Snizzard, grow, which means it's Megazord time, but now before Billy dispatches Rita by actually stabbing her through the chest with his power lance. I have to say, this was actually pretty shocking for me, but it was actually really, really cool. We've never really seen violence like this in Power Rangers. Sure, we see a lot of attacks and stuff like that, but we've never actually seen a weapon impale another character. It was honestly pretty impressive and a really cool moment of fan service. I also really like that it speaks to what Billy's going through because it shows how eager he is to make sure he fully dispatches this threat. The Megazord is finally formed with Billy and Min piloting it. The rest of the team dispatches the other monster with Rocky literally stabbing it through the chest with his power sword before joining the team in the Megazord and finishing off Snizzard. Now while all this is going on, Robo Rita managed to survive the attack and heads for the now open time portal, but the team arrives, destroys the machine, and Zack uses his power axe to destroy Rita for good. The Shrunken Rangers are taken to Aquitar by Adam and Aisha in order to get restored to normal. The show ends with Billy, Zack, and Min reminiscing about their time with Trini, before the episode ends with a tribute to Thuy Trang and Jason David Frank. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always is kind of a mixed bag for me. On the one hand, it was a guaranteed win even before it was released, simply because of what they were able to pull off. They got back so many legacy characters, especially Billy and Zack. Now if you guys don't know, both of them had kind of rocky times on the show. Zack actually left the show because of a pay dispute, and before you think he was being a diva and requesting way too much money, Austin St. John, the original Red Ranger, actually said in an interview that the entire crew was basically being paid the same amount they would get at McDonald's to work at Power Rangers. Now for a very physically demanding, action-intense show, that's pretty crazy. And it's a shame that an issue over money actually resulted in us losing our 3 original Power Rangers so early. And that being said, I also have to talk about the situation with David Yost, who plays Billy. Now he ended up leaving the show in Power Rangers Zeo, where he basically just walked off set one day and never came back. Now if you guys are not aware, David Yost is gay, and he was bullied mercilessly back when Power Rangers was on the air in the 90s. So the fact that we're able to get all these guys back together who are excited about doing a Power Rangers project is awesome. I also want to point out that when the Megazord is formed, Billy is actually in the leader spot in the cockpit. And this makes sense, he has the most experience and he's the most knowledgeable about the Megazord. That's where he should be, and it's finally a spot that he has earned after all these years of dealing with all these issues. Now again, just due to the sheer amount of fan service here, the special is going to get a lot of points, but it's not without its flaws. First of all, the vacancy that's left here by all the missing actors is really pretty heavily felt. Yeah, sure, I mean, we have story reasons now why Rita's a robot and why we don't have Jason, Tommy, and Kimberly, but the fact that we see them so early and then they're just kind of gone is really quite strange. 2 other characters that unfortunately did not return for the special are Bulk and Skull. Now, even though there are no comedic cutaways the way it would be in a normal episode, we do still get to see that they have a business in Angel Grove selling sandwiches in some sort of a bulk operation. Now, we do see a banner for the 2 characters, but honestly, it's not enough. I realize the show wanted to take a more serious approach, and Bulk and Skull probably didn't fit into that, but again, they were a show mainstay longer than all the Rangers here, so it is kind of upsetting not to actually see them in person. Another thing I want to critique is the acting here. Now, in terms of most of the Legacy Rangers, they are all actually really good. Rocky and Kat really don't have anything to do, they're kind of just there, which is kind of upsetting, but it's really made up for by Walter Jones Zach and David Yost Billy. You can see they are actually reeling over the loss of their actual friend Tui Trang. So a lot of the scenes that require them to be emotional and sad and really torn apart really comes across in their acting. Unfortunately, what doesn't work for me is Min, the new Yellow Ranger. Now her actress, Charlie Kirsch, is obviously just super excited about being in this part, and it kind of slides through in her performance a little too much. In the dramatic scenes where she needs to kind of show sadness or show loss, she's just kind of okay, but it didn't ever feel too real to me. Another issue I had, though, is when she's meant to be having fun, being over the top, and doing karate moves, she is way overselling this. I felt like I was watching something out of the WWE crossed with Emperor Palpatine from Revenge of the Sith. Now, you may say that this kind of schlocky acting works really well with the original concept of Power Rangers, and don't get me wrong, it does. The problem is just that, compared to all the other acting and how serious the tone is meant to be, it really took me out of it in several different places. The other thing I wanted to mention is the effects here. Now, the suit transformations, teleporting, and even the Zords look pretty good. The original Zord footage is just the actual Zord footage from the original show, updated to really just give it kind of a bit of polish. The issue, though, is that with all the attacks from the monsters, and when the Zords are actually fighting the monster on the moon, it looks pretty bad, I gotta say. Now, we're not talking anything like the Power Rangers movie level bad, but you can definitely tell it's not there. I don't know, a lot of the monster effects just have a little bit too much sheen, and then the monster and the Megazord on the moon don't really feel like they have any weight. If you've ever seen the movie Pacific Rim, you know what I'm talking about. Those things were big, and they felt big when they stepped. The ground shook. When they punched each other, it kind of echoed. Everything was slow moving, and when things got hit, you felt it. We really just don't have that here, and it makes some of the really big moments in the episode feel kind of cheap. Now again, yes, that does kind of mess with the Power Rangers has always been, but I did figure with the Netflix budget behind it, it may have a little bit more money to throw around. But now with all that being said, despite all the script issues, despite all the effects issues, it actually is just magical to see all these actors come together again. And even though the show is definitely lacking in terms of its visual effects, its practical effects are very nice. They did a great job of recreating Ernie's juice bar. Obviously now it's not owned by Ernie, but it does look very similar to the original one we had, and it was definitely a very nostalgic setting. On top of that, the new and revamped command center looks awesome, the new red bug is also really cool, and seeing all the Rangers get to actually fight with their weapons for the first time pretty much ever is actually fantastic. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and give Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always 2 different grades. If you have no idea what Power Rangers is, or you really don't go into it having any nostalgia for the show from the 90s, well, first off, thanks for hanging around this video so long. But if that is you, I'm going to go ahead and give this about a C+. But that being said, if you are a 90s kid like myself and you do love Power Rangers and you loved it growing up, everything that you have here, including just seeing all the actors again, is going to go ahead and elevate this to a very generous A- for you. That being said, guys, Power Rangers Once and Always is available on Netflix right now. Go check it out if you have any interest in Power Rangers. And again, it is only about an hour, so it does pass pretty quickly. That being said, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. All that stuff really does help me out, so thanks in advance. And feel free to go check out some of my other videos until I see you next time.